Привет из Дубая. С вами передача «Голубь мира», где разбираем крутые навыки. Спрашиваем на английском, отвечаем на русском. Подтягивайте язык или смотрите перевод в тайм-кодах. Let's talk about note-taking and let's start with the definition.
Note taking starts when you are going to school or to university. You listen to your teacher and you making some notes in copybooks and so on to remember something or to make a conspect, then read it, and then you going to improve the way. By the way, several guys already told me that you have very efficient way how to make note taking. So maybe we should discuss it out of the borders of our video.
Um, I do believe that, like note taking is also how do you not only capture the information, but maybe it should be a little buffer when you're processing it. So what are the kind of, I would say, building blocks or maybe a different steps in order to, make sure that you will reach out the goal with the note taking?
Maybe I would say maybe I would sound like a old-fashioned man, but I am always saying to people in school of troubleshooter, always use just a pen or pencil with paper. Never going to type by the hands. You know, when you type on the keyboard, you just repeat everything you heard, so you never process the information. But when you have a pen or pencil, you will change it to make it in a short way, and also you will use сокращения.
Shortcuts.
Maybe you will use shortcuts, for example, from math, from physics, from chemistry, and some other sciences.
And actually, when it comes to putting your thoughts onto the paper, obviously there also might be different directions because could be a couple of things. Something is like what someone says, then might be something that what I think, what was their sentiment, etc. So how to actually not only do this, but maybe deal with this like a sort of like multitasking in your head in order so that you can have processed all of it.
Thank you for your word multi, because I'm also using multi-screen thinking when I use to write something. Usually I divide a sheet for several parts, and in each part I write first, for example, what I listen. This was from the teacher. Second, questions which I couldn't understand and maybe or probably should ask. Then what I should read additionally. Maybe there are was mentioned about books or some other articles. And last one is how I could use it in my life. You know, when you just listen to the teacher, you could take information. But if you already have businesses, if you have already subordinates or teams, you should also think how I could use in my life. Because if I'm listening to Maxim Golub and he is saying something wonderful, I could just think, oh, okay, it's a cool phrase. Then nothing will change in my life. But if I will think, how could I use in my family, with my relatives, with my employees, with my customers? This is the most important question. You know, a lot of people who come to School of Troubleshooter with different thoughts, but always they think about themselves. But you couldn't make money on yourself. You could make money with someone else. And so you should process information and understand how you could make this you know, it's like a meat. If you have meat, you couldn't sell it, but you could use grinder and to prepare cutlets and hamburgers. And if they were tasty, you will have money. But from the meat, or maybe a live pig or a live sheep, you will have no money. All information which are not processed, it's like a live animal. So you should have a very long way to sell it.
So this is actually an interesting point because sometimes when you do take notes, they actually could serve to many people afterwards. So what might be the approach of how it could help us in order to align people even after the meeting? For example, we could take a couple of notes, and after the meeting is over, even though we were not assigned as a scribe for this event, knowing that no one's sharing meeting notes, it could help us to like come up with something that could be shared with all of the participants after, and maybe they will see something which is really interesting or some sort of like a way of summarizing those things that could help them to process information further. Now, when it comes to like, I would say like after note taking, obviously there might be the things that we will need to process further, whether it will land into our like a project plan or we will need to repeat it and in order to share it one more time. So what should be the process of dealing with the notes after the taking them?
There are several ways how to use note taking. First, when you use it for yourself. For example, you are going abroad for some training and you listen and learning to use in your personal life, and you will not say to anyone. This first. Second, when you, for example, was delegated from the team, and then when you will be back, you will conduct the same meeting to other people, and you will use these notes to say as close to the thoughts of the teacher as it possible. Third, when you are learning how to change your process, how to change your project or product in your company, then you are thinking, is it okay for me to understand how to reassemble or to re-engineer it? And last one, when you're going to teach someone, but not now, and you know exactly who these individuals would be. So there are 4 ways how to write notes, and all of them differ from way how you put information on paper, how you process it, and how you structurize it.
And actually, this is also an interesting point. In order, how do you put information on paper? What might be different mechanics? For example, one of the things that we mentioned could be a shortcuts, but obviously there are so many dimensions that we can consider. For example, we could think of the if we hear something that similar is to the list, we can think, okay, maybe if there is a first item, there will be like the second one. Or if we hear that, like there is a task mentioned along with the name, we also could give it a specific section, or later we actually could connect different pieces of information in our conspect. So what could be a different mechanics when it comes to structurizing our conspect in order to make sure they're really efficient?
It depends from the science. For example, if you are learning road rules to have a driver lessons, then you will use special books, and they are quite well prepared. You will take your notes because everything already is structured. But for example, if you will listen something about history, about philosophy, and you will sit in a huge auditorium, and a lot of people will ask questions, and sometimes teacher would отвлекаться,
Distracted.
teacher will be distracted, and you will not be able to follow all the steps. Then maybe you should use several rewriting. For example, when I read books, I write all the thoughts which I like in special note on iPad, and then on the next morning I take and reread just these several pages and write a more short one, and then I use it as a reference to put on social networks. But if you, for example, making learning materials for others, like we do in School of Troubleshooters, we use slide divided for 2 parts, and also for 2 parts in horizontal way and vertical way. In lowest right part, there is a picture which will help me to remember what should I say, and not to read the text. On the right side, up one, it would be main topics or so-called bullets. On the highest would be examples, or for example, басня, притча, fairy tales.
Fairy tale.
And on the left bottom, it would be questions which was already asked by previous groups.
And when we actually talking about like different gadgets or like a different technologies for note taking, you already mentioned that you're taking notes on the iPad. What might be the other ways? And for example, I can share the way I take notes when it comes to like listening to the lectures. Usually I type, but I'm trying to not really do it one by one to what I hear, but also trying to come up with like a changed constructions. And sometimes when I do hear certain things that I could use at the previous at the next lecture as an example, I also have a section where I put them there. Then there is also color coding. I have like a couple of macros that I use in the text, so I just can use it like a shortcuts, and I can highlight text based on the specific color code. And thanks to Feng Shui, it also has like a meaning that every time I look at the lecture, I actually can really scan all of the things like quite easy. What is important things? What were examples? What is like one like thought that I brought, and then it helps. But it also comes with a struggle because obviously writing is quite faster. You can really do a lot of things, especially when it comes to drawing. But still, how we could use gadgets to help us, or they're not going to help at all.
You know, it depends. For me, much easier to write on the paper, and I just use colored pencils to underline something or to put in borders. But yes, I know about your macros from several guys, and I am would be happy to see how they works. But maybe I could predict some text could be in usual mode, some could be italic, some could be underline, and so on, and also colors. So when you write thing, you should understand, yes, it should be formed in another way. And for example, you will make it blue or you will make it green. But when you work on the paper, you have the same. You have several pencils, and you could make like a background or make border or make some signs.
And the last question will be how knowing about note-taking could help to make this world a better place.
A lot of people who are going to lectures or to listen some subjects without notebooks, without laptops, without pen and pencils, and they are just listen. They are boring. They don't know how to behave, how to put fingers or arms or legs, and they just spend the time. But even on bad lectures, you could find something very useful. Several times I was in Moscow on very boring conferences, and I was forced to sit because I was responsible as a moderator and I should ask questions from other guys. But suddenly I found two infogurus who were sitting hiddenly in the space, and they were writing down almost everything. I came and I greet them and say, "Come on, guys, I know who you are." And I was so wondering. It was so boring, but you were filled all your block notes, and they were saying, "We could use any information, and it's from you depend. Do you find it useful or not?"
А мы рассмотрели навык конспектирования и чем он полезен именно вам. Всем мира!